It's been a dramatic week for US foreign policy. First, the raids on Venezuela. Now, Donald Trump eyeing off Greenland. For more analysis, I'm joined from Washington by US Studies Centre non-resident senior fellow Lester Munson. Lester, thanks for joining me. A few days on now, how do you assess the fallout of President Trump's actions in Venezuela?
Well, very good question. You know, domestically here, of course, most Democrats have come out opposed to what the president did over the weekend, although not all of them. And there are a handful, including Senator John Fetterman, who celebrated the removal of Maduro. Republicans have been almost unanimous in their support for the president's move, so he's got a lot of support inside his party. It appears that his popularity with the American people may have ticked up a notch. I think most Americans feel there's no doubt that Nicolas Maduro was a huge problem for the U.S. He was a drug trafficker. He invited China, Russia, and Iran into our hemisphere and partnered with them on all kinds of nefarious activities. And this initiative, which was very quick, and resulted in only 2 people leaving Venezuela, Maduro and his wife, and leaving Venezuelans to continue to run their country, I think is more popular to Americans today than the approach we took in Iraq and Afghanistan 25 years ago.
Yeah, and we saw President Trump in the early hours of this talking about running Venezuela, but that seems to have been walked back in parts by Secretary of State Rubio. I wonder, what do you think the lesson Donald Trump has learnt from this military intervention in Venezuela, that there wasn't a loss of American lives? Does this embolden him, in your view, to go after other countries? We heard the talk about Colombia, now talk about Greenland as well.
Well, realistically, the U.S. isn't going to go to war in Greenland. That's kind of a crazy prospect. We're not going to go to war in Mexico. I don't even think we're going to go to war in Colombia. I think what the president is hoping for, I don't think he would say this out loud, but I think what he's really hoping, and I think there's a lot of truth in it, is that this has a demonstration effect for a lot of the other national leaders, particularly in the Western Hemisphere, who are going to change their behavior because of what he did with Nicolas Maduro. So I expect the Cubans will behave differently, the Nicaraguans, perhaps even the Colombians in the long run are going to see the wisdom of finding a better way to deal with the United States. But I don't see this military operation as replicable in these other places.
On Greenland today, it seems like there's a lot of focus on this in the United States. The White House putting out a statement in the last few hours saying that, yes, Donald Trump is discussing a range of options to acquire the Danish territory, including purchasing it. I mean, the Danish have been pretty clear it's not for sale. Is this all one big troll? Is it the art of the deal? What's behind this?
Well, I do think the president is intentionally offending people by talking about military action. He's trying to provoke a response, and it appears to be working, by the way. And it's reinvigorated the conversation about what else might be possible. Denmark can say they're not interested in selling, but that's usually the first thing you say in a negotiation like this. I don't know where this is going to end up. I'm hesitant to predict anything, but I have a feeling the U.S. and Denmark are going to end up speaking in much more pragmatic terms in the relatively near future.
In a bigger picture, look at this. Donald Trump this week embracing that framing of the Dunn-Road Doctrine, harking back to the Monroe Doctrine of the 1800s. What does that sort of language do in terms of the bigger geopolitical questions? Does it embolden Russia, for example, in Ukraine? Does China take a signal out of this that it can do anything it wants in its so-called hemisphere?
Well, I think people have criticized Trump's move in Venezuela on exactly those terms. And the implication seems to be that because the U.S. wants to be the only, kind of global power involved in the Western Hemisphere, therefore it's okay for Russia to do things in its backyard or China to do things in its backyard. That's simply not the case. Realistically, Russia and China have a certain economic might and military might. They're going to do what they can do to defend themselves or to do the things that they think are in their interest as they are able. And the idea that international law can bind them to certain behaviors is belied by the fact that Russia's invaded Ukraine 10 times in the last 11 years, and that China, continues to assert sovereignty over islands and coral reefs in the South China Sea that clearly do not belong to China. So neither one of these countries has really respected international law in the past. And I think it's a mistake to think that anything Donald Trump could do would impact their decision making in that area. The impact that I think it does have when Trump backs up what he says he's going to do, if he makes a threat in the future over Taiwan or Ukraine or what have you, I think those actors in Beijing and Moscow are going to see him as much more likely to follow through on what he has said he will do.
Yeah, there's certainly a disrupted Donald Trump to international politics. Lester Munson from Washington, really appreciate your time tonight. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.